crypto taxes are coming, just like winter is coming in Game of Thrones. So Congress passed the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package, sending the legislation to President Joe Biden for his signature. But while the measure makes historic investments in roads and bridges, which by the way is only, I believe, $100 billion out of the $1.2 trillion, think about that for a second. It also maintains a controversial new cryptocurrency tax reporting requirement that the Treasury Department could apply to miners. Biden's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act requires brokers to report trader information on transactions of more than $10,000 to the IRS. Now, the provision was added to the Senate version of the bill in late July after the Joint Committee on Taxation estimated that it would offset $28 billion of infrastructure costs over the next decade. So the Joint Committee on Taxation estimated that it would offset $28 billion of infrastructure costs. But the cryptocurrency community is more concerned about how the bill defines a broker more than the new tax requirements it imposes on them. Industry groups and think tanks like the Chamber of Digital Commerce and Coin Center have argued that the bill's current language is too broad and vague and could impose these reporting requirements to miners and wallet developers, not just brokers like Coinbase. So senators that are sympathetic to the cryptocurrency industry, like Senators Ron Wyden and Cynthia Lummis, tried to remedy the problem over the summer before the Senate passed the bill, joining with Senator Pat Toomey for an amendment clarifying the role of brokers in the legislation. But the amendment was shot down when Senator Richard Shelby objected to a unanimous motion to approve it in August. Now, here's the scary thing, right? For those that end up stumbling upon this episode. This is basically where the government is going to go after you for your crypto, right? Because they view it as a threat to the United States dollar and they want to tax your gains. So all those people who end up potentially making millions of dollars from Shiba Inu, guess what? You're probably going to get taxed. All those people who are making the fluky Inu, whatever kind of coin, you're probably going to get taxed. All these people who are investing into these altcoins, even people who might just be tossing in like $20, basically like a lottery ticket to some of these altcoins, and it ends up getting to like 100 grand, 10 grand, 5 grand, 1 grand, $1 million. Guess what? The government's going to be potentially going after you. And look, wherever you live, you have to abide by the laws that are set there, right? That being said, if you are not disgusted by the government pushing these packages with basically shoveling things under the carpet so that people don't even pay attention to what is actually being passed, like, it is so disturbing when the government tries to do stuff like this because you know what they're trying to do. They're trying to literally screw over hardworking people. They're trying to screw over people who are just trying to make a little bit of money, right? Like, this is the same type of thing about that $600, where the Janet Yellen is basically wanting to see basically all the transaction data of $600 and more, right? Like, hey, guess what? There's not a lot of millionaires and billionaires doing $600 transactions, right? Like within that time, that price point. So it's just, you got to be really wary when the government tries to do stuff like this. So Shelby previously chaired the Senate Banking Committee. So again, the final thoughts on this, right, is that there's probably going to be more and more regulation coming to cryptocurrency if you're not careful. Make sure if you were to sell cryptocurrency or transfer cryptocurrency into another cryptocurrency that you do your taxes well, right? Like if you're like a trader, if you are like a swing trader, day trader, NFT buyer and seller, all that kind of stuff, right? Be very good on your taxes because you don't want the government to use this broad and vague language to basically screw you over, right? And look, you could be the most well-behaved individual when it comes down to money and all that kind of stuff. It comes down to following the laws and that kind of stuff. But if you screw up on your taxes, even with the cryptocurrency stuff, the government is going to go after you, right? Like they will go after you. So be very careful in this type of situation, right? And be very careful on the next bills that are potentially going to get passed or the next mandates that are potentially going to get passed. And you also got to think about it too, right? They're making such a massive thing about spending trillions of dollars, basically screwing over hardworking people in terms of like taxation, right? Which a lot of people don't even understand. And yet they are also passing mandates for vaccinations where companies are basically going to be forced to pay massive fines if they don't force their employees to get it or fire those employees that don't get it. You can understand like the absurdness of things like this. And guess what? In the next few days, next weeks or months or whatever, the White House, Biden is going to be pushing this like they're like doing like a massive celebration and all that kind of stuff, right? And I bet you that Biden and probably none of the people that ended up passing this thing even read half of it. Okay? And when you come to that realization, which by the way, I believe one massive train company is getting massive amounts of money from this thing. I'm talking, I think, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? When you start to realize that all these bills that end up getting passed, all these packages that end up getting passed are basically one big Ponzi scheme, or not really a Ponzi scheme, but one big scam, right? This is kind of like the whole thing with the charity organizations, right? Why a lot of charities end up getting a lot of heat, right? The reason for that is because typically you have a charity where you donate basically $4 and only $1 actually goes to the cause and $3 end up actually basically funding the whole operation and doing the paychecks for the people who run the whole thing, right? And that's basically the same thing with this package, just to use it as an example, because I believe the actual infrastructure part of this package is about only like $100 billion or $200 billion out of 1.2 trillion. Okay? Think about that for a second. Okay? I believe that's not even a tenth. Like if it's like only $100 billion, that's not even a tenth of the actual total cost of this, right? Like it'd be different if 1.2 trillion literally went into infrastructure. Like literally went into infrastructure, and that's it. But there's so much extra nonsense in all these packages that are basically just a slap to the American people, right? And again, I bet you none of these people that voted yes on this even read half of it. Like, how disturbing is that? So really, what you really need to do is make sure that you are out of debt that you have money in the bank, that you have money going towards investments, so that regardless of how stupid this government is ran in terms of money, you will be financially safe. Feel free to subscribe, check out 14box.com to learn how to get out of debt.